Hello everybody, welcome to the InduSoft webinar covering animations today. We're glad you could attend. We really appreciate you joining these webinars. Hopefully you get something out of this. Hopefully you get to learn and see what the InduSoft features are all about. And today we're covering animations. I'll open up an agenda here in just a second. But again, we really are happy to have you joining. A few things as we get started. Number one, I cannot hear you. First of all, my name is Scott Courtier, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. I'm the technical evangelist for InduSoft, sales position, and technically promoting InduSoft. So, again, we can't hear you. I can't hear you. So if you have any suggestions, comments, questions, please feel free to put those into the WebEx Q&A panel or possibly even the chat panel. At the end of the webinar, I'll show you some links on how you can contact InduSoft directly. You can always get a hold of us on our phone or email us, live chat, things of that nature, and I'll show you that towards the end of the webinar. Also, after the webinar is over, within the next day or two, you'll be receiving a survey that once you fill that out, if you give us your name, shirt size, you'll receive an address, you'll receive a free t-shirt about the webinar series. And we'd also like to have your feedback of what you'd like to see in future webinar series. If you'd like more information, less information, what you wanted on, things of that nature, please feel free to fill that out in that survey. So we'd love to hear back from you. These are for you, and hopefully this will help your knowledge increase about InduSoft and see what it can do to help improve your process or your machine or your production. As we get started here, I'm going to go over a brief agenda, and then I'm going to talk briefly about the company, just one slide or so, and then we're going to get into this. We've got a lot of information to cover in just about an hour, and we'll see if we can't get going here. We're going to fill and move a bottle across the screen, so like a bottling line that you might see in a packaging type application, bottling application, food and beverage. We're going to move an object in a circle, and we're not going to move it using the rotation command, but we're going to move it using a position command, so I'll show you how to do that. We'll revolve a drum being something similar to what you might find in a washing machine or a cement mixer, polishing parts, or candy coating line. Gantry operation, a pick and place, pick up, move over, and lower. How to rotate a wind turbine or propeller or something that you can choose the center point of the rotation. Then we're going to go to the command animation, talk a bit about that. What's the difference between button and push button? We'll use resize to make something appear to rotate, similar to how we do that in the PC demo. And we'll show visibility on security levels. So we can hide buttons and hide objects that maybe certain users at certain security levels shouldn't be able to see. We'll talk about using scheduler for simulation. We'll use that fairly early in the application here. We'll talk about stacked bar graphs. That's a question that I get, and talk a bit about multi-touch, and we'll do some user interface things as well. This webinar is really the culmination of a handful of training classes that I've taught over the years, and really the common questions: how do you do this? How do you do that? And for more information on using animations, we're not going to cover every animation in detail. For that, I'd like to suggest that you look at our video training series that we have on our website. If you didn't know that, we have our entire 5-day training class on our website free of charge. You can just go there and watch the videos or download those and watch them when you want to. This video or this webinar is going to be more of tips and tricks and things that I've seen a lot of people be interested in over the years as I've taught different training classes. So that's what we're going to do today. Hopefully that suits what you're looking for. I'd like to mention that our distributor, MDN Italia, is exhibiting at SPS IPC Drives, and they are watching this live streaming at their booth. So I don't know if they did that this morning, if they're doing that this evening. I'm guessing it's a little bit late, so they probably did it this morning. But if you're there, thank you very much for watching live. A brief company overview. InduSoft was established in 1997, so we've been around for a while. We've got over 250,000 installations worldwide. We're the first in the industry to have HMI and SCADA package for Microsoft Windows CE. Why is that important for you guys? Well, since we still develop for Windows CE, and it helps us keep the product more efficient, we're always aware of a small footprint, memory, and embedded operating systems, so that it helps keep the product faster, streamlined, and current or a complete feature set across all the platforms. So that's certainly an advantage for you guys. And we have a web solution, we have a web publishing and 3 different thin clients, and we have a patent for our database connectivity. We can connect from embedded devices to databases that were not normally meant to connect to embedded devices. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things that we're going to do here is fill a bottle and move it, and we're going to use an animation to do that. What I'd also like to point out, especially as we get new people joining here, is that I'm using a preliminary version, a beta version of InduSoft Web Studio that'll be out in another 4 or 5 weeks or so, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. This is going to be Service Pack 2, and you're going to see some different things if you're familiar with InduSoft Web Studio, some new and improved things that are up and coming. And we're going to do a webinar, probably another a couple webinars or so here on Service Pack 2. So please hold your questions that are specifically related to Service Pack 2 until that webinar. And please let us know if you have any questions on animations as we get going. So what am I going to do for this? I'm going to import a linked picture that's this bottle. And using Service Pack 2, the new features that are coming up in Service Pack 2, I can adjust the transparency or visibility on that bottle, that picture, and then I'm going to put a filled polygon behind it and fill it like it's being filled with wine or chocolate sauce or something that's dark red or dark brown. And then we're going to move it all across the screen. So let's go ahead and get started on that. What I've done before this webinar is I've built an application that has a foundation of screens and navigation. And I want to talk a little bit about that before I get going. And for those of you who have not watched the training videos or attended our training class, InduSoft Web Studio is very flexible as far as how it can use screens. We can make one screen take up the entire computer display, or in this case, I have 3 screens that are showing. I have this top header here that has some status and some buttons on it, and then I have another screen that's navigation, and then I have this middle part here that is kind of my workspace. That is actually comprised of another screen. And every time I press one of these buttons, it's just changing this middle part, and I can leave the header alone, and I can leave the navigation alone, and that makes it more convenient, a nice user interface. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that towards the tail end of the webinar, but I wanted to show you what I have here, and I'm going to go to the bottle screen and show you that that's blank. And now let's go in and edit that bottle screen and show you what I'm going to do here. Looks like I got a little bit spilling over the edge of the screen here. Hopefully everybody can see me here okay. I have, not me, but the screen I should say. I have this bottle screen, and what I'm going to do is use this linked picture, and I'm going to pull from a picture that I put in my project folder, and it's a .png of a bottle with a transparent background on it. Excuse me. Now this bottle has a little bit too large, so I'm going to resize it here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw over the top of this a closed polygon. And before I get to that, actually, what I'm going to do is show you about this transparency. Now this again is Service Pack 2 that is not out yet, but it'll be out in 3 or 4 more weeks, give or take. And what we've done is we've renamed the position animation Position and Visibility. And once I apply that, inside of here, those of you who are familiar with the position animation properties will notice that this used to be called Show on Condition, and now it's called Visibility. This Show on Condition field used to be Boolean, either on or off, or true or false, or 0 or 1. And if it evaluated to 0, then this object would be hidden. If it evaluated to non-zero, then this object would be shown. Well, now we've changed this field to a real type field, so I can type in a decimal number between 0 and 1, or 0 or 1, and or have a an expression here, evaluate to a number, and what that's going to do is give us our transparency level. So let's say that I put in 0.5, that's going to be 50% transparent, and watch what happens when I run this. Actually, before I do this, let me do one quick thing here. I'm going to put a rectangle here and push it to the back. And so right now you can see in the development system you cannot see through this linked picture, but when I run this and go to my bottle screen, you can see that now that is 50% transparent, and I can actually see the object that was normally covered up behind there. So again, this is coming in Service Pack 2. It'll be out in a few weeks. So don't look for it in your version if you have Service Pack 1 today. And again, if you have 7.1 or 7.1 with Service Pack 1, Service Pack 2 will be a free upgrade. So before, let's see, I'm going to erase that, and now I'm going to put a closed polygon. And one of the things I'm going to do is make sure that my not my screen attributes, sorry, my grid settings, my snap to grid is turned off, because I'm going to try to trace around the outline of this bottle. Now I'm going to do this quickly, and if I was doing a real application, I would probably spend a little bit more time doing this a little bit more neatly and cleanly, but you'll get the point. And what I'm going to do here is draw this with a few points here, give us a rounded section, and we'll fill in this, and then we'll end by right-clicking, and that will go ahead and fill that in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the properties. I'm going to get rid of the border, and I'm going to change the fill of this shape to white. And what I'll do is go here, and let's see, does that roughly look? Yeah, that roughly looks like the outline of the bottle. And then what I'll do is I'm now going to apply the bar graph animation to this closed polygon, and that will fill that. And I'm going to put this as level and make that 0 to 100. That'll give us 0 to 100%. It'll grow vertically, it'll grow up, and I'm going to make the color of that fill level does not exist. I'm going to make that as an integer tag, and I'm going to fill this with kind of a red brown, maybe for the dark red wine color that's going to be in that bottle. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to then push this to the back, and I think that 50% was maybe a little bit too transparent, so I'm going to change this to 0.6 and make that. So now we need a way to change level, and you're going to see throughout this webinar that I'm going to use a lot of different sliders to simulate values coming from PLCs. So I'm going to go ahead and put this slider on here. That was a warning message that told me that I already had that slider somewhere else in this project, and I'm going to go ahead and overwrite it. That's fine. And I'm going to put this to level. Say OK. And now what I should be able to do is close this screen and save it and run. Go to the bottle screen, and now I should be able to fill that bottle up to the top with wine or whatever filling I have. Now this by itself is nice, but normally if you have a bottling line, you're going to have a bunch of these, and they're going to be moving across the screen. So how would we move that? One of the things I wanted to point out to you is that you can group these. Now I have, you can see behind here, it's the closed polygon and the linked picture, and I'm going to go ahead and group this, and then I'm going to apply another position animation to this. So what you can see here is this is a closed polygon that has a bar graph animation, a linked picture that has visibility, and then the whole thing is grouped, and I'm applying another visibility position animation to it. And what we're going to do is instead of filling in the visibility, I'm going to move this horizontally across the screen, and we'll call this bottle position. And I'm going to get a range of value from another slider that I'm going to put on from 0 to 100. I'm going to move that to maybe, I have to create that first, sorry. And then I'm going to move this maybe 500 pixels over. And let's see, I think that's all I need, except for the horizontal slider here. I'll grab this slider, put this in, and yes, from this morning's webinar, I do want to overwrite that. And we'll go ahead and put this bottle position in. And now, when I run this, you'll be able to see this. I can fill this, and I can also move it across the screen. So you can see that I can move those and fill those with different values, maybe coming from PLCs. Now, to take this a step further, to configure this, what I've done is previously I made a similar application and I made a video out of it. So I'm going to bring that video into the viewable window here, and I'm going to play that video so you can see what that is. Let's reduce this down just a bit. And now when I play this video, you can see what happens is it lifts that bottle up, it fills it, and then the next one comes in. It lifts it up, fills it, moves it. So it's moving horizontally and simultaneously vertically, and then filling that to a certain level as it goes up the screen. So you can see that you can get some fairly complex animations going in just some quick amount of time with that. So go ahead and move this off the screen. And okay, so that's all I wanted to show you on the bottle fill and move, and show you how that's done, and show you some upcoming features that'll be in Service Pack 2. Now we're going to move an object in a circle, and in order to do this, we're going to start simulating some data with using the scheduler. And I'm going to use a time base of 1/10 of a second, so this is hours, minutes, seconds, and then tenths of seconds. And the first thing I'm going to do is count up to 20, and I'm going to use this if statement and increment this index. So the way that this if statement works, if you're not familiar with this, and let me just go ahead and put this in while I'm talking about it, I'm going to go into my scheduler, which is here under the Tasks tab, and I already have something in here for the drum that I'm going to do in just a minute, but what I'm going to do is put in hours, minutes, seconds, dot 1 for tenths of a second, and I'm going to create that tag called index, and I'm going to make that an integer, and I'm going to count up to, what did I say that was going to be? I think I said 20. Yeah, I'm going to count to 20. So that's going to be if, and then index is less than 20, then, so here comes the true part of this, then I'm going to take index and add 1 to it, else I'm going to write a 0 back into it. Now what it does is it evaluates this. If index is less than 20, so if it's 19, then it adds 1 more to it and it writes it back to itself. If it's at 20, it's not less than 20, so then it puts the 0 back into index. And for more on the scheduler, please feel free to take a look at our online training series and see how the scheduler works on the different events and the different triggering mechanisms. But what this is going to do is simulate and count up to 20 and then start back over at 0 again. So we're going to use that number 20 in the next two places. So what I'm going to do is copy this. And now what we need to do is give us an X position and a Y position. I'm going to move something around on the screen. And what I'm going to do is use some trigonometry, and I'm going to make a sine wave and a cosine wave based off of that same index. And when you do that, those numbers are going to be 90 degrees out of phase. And if we plot those by using a position animation, then we're going to get a circle out of that. So I'm not going to go into explaining the trig, but you can use this same function, and this is going to be in the PowerPoint that you can download after the webinar. And you can mess with these different values and see how the amplitude works and how the offsets work and things of that nature. So if you have the same index and sine and cosine and you're plotting against those, they're going to basically plot a circle. So what I'm going to do is try to remember this. Actually, what I'll do is I will take the PowerPoint and move that off the screen so I can see it and remember how to type this in here. So bear with me just a second and put this in here. So what I'm going to do is create X position, and that'll be an integer tag. And then what I'm going to do is put that formula in there. What this is going to be is 200 times, and then I'm going to put in parentheses sine, and then the function sine needs parentheses, and I'm going to take the value from index that we created above in that tag, index, and I'm going to divide that by 10, and then I'm going to multiply it by pi, Well, InduSoft Web Studio has a function called pi, so I'm going to use that pi and then open and close parentheses. That'll give me the value 3.14159, so on and so forth. And then I'm going to close the parenthesis for the index. I'm going to add 1 to it, and then close my parenthesis for wrapping around the whole thing. Now, hopefully I have everything right here, because what I'm going to do is then copy that down and change the sign into cosine, and create the Y position, and then use that same time base as well. So now I'm going to have an X position and a Y position that are going to be basically plotting a circle, and I can save this. And now I need to go to my screens and go to my rotate. And on here, what I'm going to do is put a circle or an ellipse that I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to apply the position animation, and this will be the horizontal will be the X position, and the Y position will be the vertical. And I think that goes up to 200 by 200 from that value, and so we're going to try that, see if that works. And actually, I'm kind of misleading you here. I'll show you that in a moment. Shoot that and what to expect. Alright, so we're going to do this, and I'm going to move that a couple hundred pixels. So let's go ahead and run this now, and then come back and troubleshoot and see what's going on. When I go to the rotate, it moves over it up, and then what it's doing is it's moving straight across, straight up, and then at an arc down from the top down. I haven't allocated enough pixels, and let's go see what's going on here. What I can do is go on that screen and display the positions, the values for X and Y. I could use my database SPY. That's probably a more efficient way to do it, but I can also put it right here on the screen for X position, and I'll put just a few pound signs here and tie that to a text data link animation. And once I've done that, I can put in my X position, and then I'm going to copy this down. I'm just holding the control key down and change this to Y position, and I'll go back to the text and I'll change this to Y position. And now when I run this, I'm going to be able to see those values. Not only allocated 200 pixels, and if you see here briefly, hopefully you can see this on the webinar, I can actually see that this is going up to 400. So that's what I didn't do. I didn't allocate enough space for it here. So let me go back into that, rotate, and change this. Instead of being 200, we'll make the value go from 400. So the value 400 will go 400 pixels, and you can scale this any way that you want to. But you just see what I'm doing here, and run that. So now we can see that it's going 400 pixels. It's going in a circle. Hopefully it's not too fast for the webinar to keep up, but it's going in a circle. So you can make adjustments to the trig, to the math, if you have positions coming in from PLC. Maybe what you might want to do is replace that index that I created in the scheduler with a value coming from your PLC. Maybe you have 20 positions on a dial rotating table for manufacturing. Replace this value coming from the PLC, but then use the scheduler to create the math to make that thing move on a curve. So that's something that you can do there too. Okay, so moving along, let's get my PowerPoint back into view here. And revolving a drum. The next thing that I want to do is more like a cement mixer or a candy coating machine or something that would be used for parts polishing. And the first time that I did this, I tried to use a line as maybe like a fin on the outside of this to simulate it revolving. And I tried to change the angle and change the length and position, and everything got very complicated very fast. And I figured out over the years a simple way to do this. So what I'm going to do is show you what we're going to do for that, or how we were able to solve that. Here on the drum screen, I already have this screen created, and you can see here there's this line that I'm going to use to simulate around here. Let me move that back. Let me actually show you what this is going to do first before I try to describe how to create it. We'll go into the drum screen. You can see that this is simulating a rotation, the fin goes behind and it comes back across the top, and then it rotates around again. Well, the problem with this is, how do you rotate around this point? How do you find where that point is and then move that point as it's rotating? Well, I have these couple extra lines here on the screen, and let me show you what I did to simulate this or use this. What I did is I made a line here, and I put it roughly in the position of where that fin will be, and I made another line here, roughly where that will be, and I'm close here, but I just changed this, scaled this line, or changed the size of this line until those intersected, and then that gives me some help. And let me move this lower one out of the way, and I'll move this upper one up here. Now what this does is this gives me the rotation point. Even though this line is not the same length, what I'm going to do is rotate around this point where they coincide out here in space. So in order to get this point, I need to know what that the number of pixels is. And a trick that we can use, and we showed you this in the training video, if I go to the Format tab and I move this object into the very upper corner so that its upper left-hand coordinate is 0, 0, I can see that this is 383 pixels over and 61 pixels down. And by choosing that point in space, what I've done on this line is used a custom rotation point referencing the upper left, because I know that's 0, 0, and then I'm going to reference this down here, this 383 by 61 that I figured out by where those two crossed. So by doing that, I'm going to move this counterclockwise, and through a little bit of trial and error, I found out that my degrees here was about 20 degrees. I tried 25, I tried 15, and I backed it off and settled eventually on 20. That's roughly 20 degrees. The simulation that's going on in the simulator, it's actually rotating that value up to 75, or incrementing that value up to 75. And here in the that line, in that rotation, what I'm doing is only using 50 of that, and then the rest of it is kind of hiding it behind the screen. What I'm doing here is saying, when it gets above 50, then hide it, so you don't see that. So you can see how that is all set up there. Again, one more try. If I go ahead and run this and go to drum, you should be able to see that appears to be rotating. And you can choose different colors, and you could even do this on a bitmap and use that kind of fin or that object around there to be appear to be rotating. So that's something that you can do. All right. So the next thing that I like to show is how you can use kind of a pick and place or pick up and move an object. And this is probably one of the more basic things that I'm showing, but believe it or not, I guess a lot of people don't realize that you can actually do this. So what we're going to do is go to the gantry screen here, and I'm going to put an object on the screen. I'm just going to put a box here. Maybe we're picking up a cardboard box or something, and I'm going to pick it up and move it and then set it back down. Maybe a robot's doing that. Maybe some other tool is doing that. So how do we do this? We're first going to create the position animation here, and we're going to use the horizontal position HPOS, and that tag does not exist, so I'm going to create that as an integer, and I'm going to use 0 to 100, and I'm going to move it 100 pixels, and so that's the horizontal. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to eventually put a slider on the screen that's 100 for the range, and I'm going to move this, let's say 500 pixels across the screen. Now for the vertical, I'm going to create VPOS, and when I create that slider that's going to change that 100 pixels, I want to pick that up 100 pixels on the screen. And VPOS does not exist, so we'll do that. I'll create that tag, and I can close this. Now we're going to put a couple of sliders on the screen that are going to simulate lifting that and moving across the screen. Let's choose this slider here. I'm going to choose this one for the vertical, and that will be tied to VPOS. Make sure I have that there. And then I'm going to do similar with the horizontal. I'll pull the slider number 8 here, and this will be the horizontal position, or H position. So at this point, I should be able to pick this object, move it across, and those two values would be coming maybe from some type of motion controller, drive, some type of PLC, whatever the case may be. And for those of you who are sitting there going, oh, he did something wrong, hopefully you are catching that, because I can move this left and right on the screen, but when I try to lift it, it goes down. Well, why is that? Because 0, 0 is actually up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. The horizontal value, or the X value, increases to the right, but the Y value increases down. So here I am increasing the Y value, and that increases down. So I have to change that and move that down. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's change this. So vertical, instead of going 100 pixels in that direction, we're going to go negative 100 pixels. And once we get that working, we should be able to lift that object here. So maybe what would happen is we might have a starting position. We might lift that box, then the robot would move it over, or the gantry would move that over and then drop it down. We might then change the visibility to hide this object, and then another object would take over and then slide that across the screen on a conveyor or whatever the case may be. You can use this as a top-down view of an object, let's say, and one of the things that you could do is if you lifted that object up and this was a top-down view, you could enlarge this object or resize this object so that it would look like it was coming out of the screen and maybe lifting up and then moving over. So you can get a little bit of depth and things of that nature just by being creative. And we'll talk a little bit more about being creative on some objects that we're going to rotate in a bit that we're not really rotating. So we'll talk about that too. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that if you needed to position this, let's say that you wanted to position this with maybe a robot gripper. Maybe there were a couple little handles that came down here, and these opened and closed and gripped this object, but you didn't know exactly where the alignment was, and you maybe knew the gripper was over here. Some of the things that you could do would be to, let me do this. Let me swap out this slider for one that's got an actual number on it here. And here we're going to use the V position. And then what I'm going to do is enable this to be an input by checking this checkbox. Now this is part of the multi-touch features that were in 7.1 Service Pack 1, and this used to say just slider. Now it says slider and gestures. So once I enable this, I can move this with my cursor as a slider, or if I have multi-touch, I can move it with multiple fingers as well. I can move multiple objects on the screen with multiple fingers. So that's part of the new multi-touch that's been out in Service Pack 1. But by doing this, this creates this as an input. And now when I run this, if I wanted to see how to position this or where to position this maybe within those grippers, I might be able to position this. Okay, right there is kind of the vertical center point. I can say, oh, that's at 58. So now I can use those measurements or those values and kind of position things around and cheat a little bit. And I shouldn't say cheat, maybe be more efficient on how you do this and figure out positioning, maybe get the horizontal and the vertical positioning numbers, and then go back in and turn off that slider gesture, and then the user can't do that, but that'll help you get those numbers and positioning and things of that nature. So that's one way to do that. So that's all I wanted to show on that object for gantry pickup and move. Let's talk a bit about wind turbine. And again, for those of you who have taken the training class or maybe watched the training videos, maybe you know how to do this. But what we're going to do is here on the wind screen, I have a picture that I've pasted in here. This is a linked picture, I should say. And it had a background, and this is a little bit different interface if you're familiar with Service Pack 1. Now we've combined the pasted picture and the linked picture into the same interface, and that again will be available in Service Pack 2, but I've chosen the transparent color by this little extra handle, this tracker down here, so that it made the background of this transparent. Well, what I want to do is I want to rotate this turbine blade around this very, very center point. But because this is not exactly the top part of this picture, and this is not the leftmost part, how do I do that? It's not actually the center. The center is actually right around here someplace, and that would appear to wobble if I made it a little bit different. Well, similar to how that I did the drum, what I can do is I can move this picture all the way into the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to make sure here on the format that I've chosen 0 and 0, not chosen, but positioned it so it's 0 and 0. If you want another quick way, if you don't want to use your mouse, just go up here and type in 0 and 0, and that'll tuck it up in there. And when an object is selected, down here in the status bar, it's going to show me the current corner, upper corner position, and the height and width of that object. If I click off of that object, the status bar is now going to show me the cursor position of my mouse cursor. And what I'm going to do is position it right over that center point, and you can see that I'm roughly at 215 by 200. So that's what I'm going to use as the rotation point. So now I can move this out of the way. It's just a reference or an offset from that upper left-hand corner. I'm going to go under here under Advanced. I'm going to put in 215 and 200 and click on OK. And once again, I'm going to use a slider to simulate that value. That would probably be coming back from the turbine controller itself. And I'm going to make 0 to 100. We'll make this rot value. And that doesn't exist. And whoops, create that. And then here, under the rotation, I'm going to go ahead and choose that rotation value. And so from 0 to 100, it's going to rotate 0 to 360 degrees, referencing that top left corner, but then an offset 215 by 200, which is right on that little center point there. And now I should be able to rotate that wind turbine, propeller, blade, whatever object you might apply this to. Go ahead and run this. And now you can see that that rotates right there around that center point. And I could put a tower on this, and I could put all kinds of directions and different things on this. And this not only applies to wind turbines, but other things that you might have in your facility. What you might do is draw a conveyor and draw the rollers that are under the conveyor, and make a little circle and make this show whenever the conveyor is moving. It could be an escalator or something along those lines as well. So that's how to do that. That's a little tip and trick how to do that. What's the next thing that we want to show? Command animation. Let's talk a bit about the command animation, and to do that I'm going to talk a bit about buttons and push buttons. I'm going to open up the main screen here, which should be blank, and I'm going to explain a lot of questions that I've often got talking about the button versus push buttons, is why are there different ones? Well, originally when InduSoft came out, we had this button object, and the button object was originally meant to be used with the command animation. And when you use the command animation on it, let's say this is automatic mode. When you use the command animation, and I can apply that from here, or I can be more efficient and just apply it right from here from this properties box. Then I get the choices of using the built-in language, VB script, opening and closing screens, setting and resetting, and toggling tags. And I can do those each independent of each other on the down or the press of that button, while it's down, on up, on right or left mouse button, double click, so on and so forth. And then we get into some of the multi-touch features that we have. And again, please take a look at the multi-touch video if you're interested in that. Under the training videos, I believe it's the last one at the bottom of the list. When we first came out with InduSoft Web Studio, the button object was the first button and the only button that we had. We didn't have the push button. And to build a momentary type button where it was 1 when you press it and 0 when you release it, and with multiple colors and multiple lines of text. Back then we didn't have multiple lines of text, and the button itself couldn't change color. Now it can have multiple lines and change color. You actually had to apply extra pieces of text, a rectangle over the top of the button, and configure it in one of a couple of ways. Let's say this is automatic mode. This doesn't exist. I'm going to create this as a Boolean. On down, I would write a 1, and on up, I'm going to choose auto mode here again. On up, I would write a 0. Well, in order, again, to apply multiple colors and multiple lines or multiple lines of text, that would take layering several different objects on top of each other just to make it act like a push button that everybody wanted it to act like anyway. So then we came out with the push button object, which allows you to type in the tag. In this case, I'm just going to say auto mode, and then go ahead and configure this, which I can have multiple lines of text in here, and change the colors, and choose the style, so on and so forth. The fonts can even be different, and the value that gets written when it's open or closed, you just put in here, and then that's pretty easy. So go back to the PowerPoint here. The button object with the command animation, you get a lot of flexibility out of this. You can use the built-in scripting, the VB script, the set, reset bit, toggle bit, open screen, close screen, and it can be made to act similar to a push button. The push button object behaves like a real push button, normally open, normally closed, and you can get some on and off conditions in there, and it basically makes it easier to configure if you're using a button that's like a real world push button on a panel of some sort. A couple of things that I wanted to show you here that a lot of people don't realize is that on this object in the button configuration here in the caption, I can also show the value. So I can put inside of curly brackets, not parentheses, but curly brackets, I can put the tag auto mode, no space in this because tags cannot have spaces, but inside of curly brackets, then when I run this, I can show the value of that tag. And here when I press, you can see it's a 1. When I release, it's a 0. So that shows you the value of that. Maybe you don't want the user to see the actual value, but you want to see on or off in there. So let's try to do that. Let's go back in here. That was on the main screen. I did that. And instead of just showing the tag, I'm going to build a little bit of logic in here. And a lot of people don't realize that you can actually put in built-in scripting in here. What I'm going to say is if, and then parenthesis, auto mode is equal to 1, then the comma, we're going to put the word on in here, close the quote, close the comma there, else we're going to show the word off, close the parenthesis. So if auto mode is 1, we're going to show the word on, otherwise we'll show the word off. We'll put that if function has parentheses, and then all wrapped around it is the curly brackets. And now what we should see when we run this, instead of the 1 and the 0, we should see the word off and on as I press this. So that's a nice way to use some of the captioning or the fields, similar to how I built up the status up here. So let's move along to the next thing. We're going to use resize to appear to rotate. Now where this comes from is the idea in the PC demo that ships with InduSoft Web Studio. And what I'm going to do is open that PC demo up. I had a question this morning in the webinar about how can I get PC demo. PC demo ships and installs when you install InduSoft Web Studio. It's already there. We'd like to have you take a look at that and encourage you to learn from what it's doing. But here on the opening page, opening screen, you can see we've got some screenshots that are rotating here. Well, they're not really rotating. Their position is moving across the screen, and then they're getting thinner or resizing horizontally as they get closer to the edge. So we're going to show you how that works, and I'm going to get out of PC demo. Before I do that, just wanted to show you that this shows all the different features that are in InduSoft Web Studio. So if you've never seen this, please feel free to open this up and take a look at it and learn from it. It's a great tool. Shows you some different industry things that we have here and pop-ups and things of that nature. So let me go ahead and get out of this. And so what I'm going to do is try to rotate like that was on that opening screen in ours here. Now what I've done is I've created a bitmap or a picture in a third party like a Paint program or a Photoshop, and I've just brought that into my rotation screen here. And this is not an InduSoft rectangle and text. This is a picture. You can see that when I double click on this that it is a linked picture, and it's actually a bitmap that's out on the hard drive. And what I'm going to do is apply the resize animation to this, and I'm going to change its width. And what we'll do is we'll change this width. Let's make up a new tag here. Rotate value. And that doesn't exist. I'm going to make that also an integer. And when that changes from 0 to 100, I'm going to change its percent. And notice here that instead of being left, I'm going to do it from the center. And guess what? I need another slider here. I'll put this on the screen, give myself some simulation, and tie to that rotate value here. And now, when I run this, it will appear that if you did this right, that it's rotating about a center axis. And one of the things that I brought up in this morning's webinar is that you could have a back side of this, so you could rotate, make this invisible, and then rotate in the back side of this so it would look like it would be spinning in 360 degrees. It might be a sign, it might be a way to catch somebody's attention, it might be something going on your machine or process that it's trying to simulate. So, and you can actually take real values from the PLC or motion control device. Question that we've had, I'm going to answer this right now because it's kind of relevant instead of at the end, is can pop-up screens have transparency applied? Screens in general cannot have the transparency applied because that's the part of the animation, and you don't apply the animation to the to a screen. It's to the object. So no. But there might be some ways to do that if you wanted to. We can talk about that if you give us a call or talk to our tech support. What you might want to do there. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to cover is visibility using security level. Let me give you an example. In this application, when I'm running, I have this exit button, and it's always available. And normally, you probably would not want that available for the average operator to be able to exit the application. So what I've done is before this webinar, I actually took the time and made some security groups. And so I made operator group, supervisor group, and engineer, and I gave them some usernames and passwords. Well, just to make this easy, I gave them all the passwords the same as their name, and I made them levels of 0 to 50, 0 to 100, and 0 to 255. So let's go and configure that exit button. So that's on the header here, and this exit button, what I'm doing here is applying the group high level, which is the same tag that I'm using to show my security level. That's a built-in system tag, and I'm saying that when that is over 100, when it's greater than 100, then I'll be able to see it. So basically, if I look back here, the supervisor won't be able to see it because it's not. He doesn't have over 100. So this needs greater than 100 to be able to see it. I could disable it, or I could use the security level to gray it out, but why would I tease the operator or the supervisor to even let them know that it's there? Let's just hide it completely. So let's go ahead and demonstrate this. What I'll do is run this and log on as the operator called Joe, and I'll put in his password. And watch the exit button up in the upper right-hand corner there. When Joe logs on, the exit button is completely gone. If Fred logs on, I think Fred was the supervisor, Fred logs on, the security level goes up to 100, but the button is still not there. And now if Bill, the engineer, comes along and he logs on, then he gets the exit button and is able to exit the application. So what I might do too is just go ahead and put this back to guest. And guest has 255, so the button is there. But what I would probably do in a real application is block out guest or change its security level so that it wouldn't have access to all of that. Okay, stacked bar graphs. This is another question that I get a lot, and what I want to do is show you how what this is going to do. We want, customers often want a bar graph that goes up to one particular level in one color, then continues on as another color, and then as it gets over a certain level, go up. Well, InduSoft Web Studio, the bar graph only has a single solid color. So how would you do this? What we're going to do, let me take this and position this off the screen here, and then come back into the bar graph here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle, and let me make sure that I have my grid turned on here, my snap to, and I'll create a rectangle, and I could apply a bar graph animation to it, but what I'm going to do is use the resize animation here. And what I'm going to do is change this to have no outline, and I'm going to change its color to be green. Let's start with the green one. And then we'll apply the resize animation. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is let's determine these different levels that we're going to change at. Maybe it's the green goes to 25%, and then the yellow goes to 75%, and then the red continues the rest of the way. So I'm going to set this up at the height. We're going to call this bar value. And I don't have that in the application, so set this here. And that bar value is only going to go to, the green is only going to go to 25% of the way up. So when that value gets to 25, it'll be at 25%. And it needs to reference not the top, but the bottom. And that's important, otherwise this won't work. And once I have this, now I could have created 3 rectangles here and then gone back in and configured them, but what you'll find quite often in InduSoft Web Studio, it's going to be more efficient to configure an object and then copy it and then just go back in and change the value. So we're going to make this one the yellow one, so I'm going to go change its color to yellow, and then I'll go back into the resize, and this will grow to 75%. And then I'm going to copy this again and then make this the red one, which will go all the way to 100%. And I got to remember not to forget to go configure this as red. And now, layering wise, they're out of order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first push the yellow one to the back. So that's behind the other two. And then I'm going to push so the red one is behind the yellow one, and they're all behind the green one. For some alignment tips, one of the things I might do is select them all by windowing around them all, and then using the arrange, align center, and then align middle. Now they're all lined up on top of each other. And so I don't forget, that was bar value. Let's go bring in a symbol here again for a slider so I can simulate some values. And that was bar value. And now when I run this, I'm going to get that stacked effect, so that now I show the green, and when I get to 25%, you'll see the yellow come out, and then at 75%, you'll see the red. And you can change those values. Now you could make this a symbol, could clean this up a little bit. What if I wanted the outline around this, or a scale? What I might do is put a rectangle around this, and then change this to be solid, but maybe black, a weight of 1 pixel, and no fill. So now when we do this, we can see that it's outlined, and you can see how that works. And there's lots of different variations. I could move these, scale these, change these. So there's a lot of different ways that I can combine those different animations as we get going, and you can set those levels and things of that nature. So hopefully that shows you something that you didn't know how to do with bar graphs before. And let me bring my PowerPoint back into view here. And the next thing I want to briefly touch on is multi-touch. And regarding multi-touch, because I don't have a multi-touch laptop that I'm demonstrating with, what I'd like to point out to you is the webinar, or not the webinar, but the video that we have, the training video covering multi-touch, shows how to use the multi-touch features with a multi-touch computer. One of the things I did want to point out is a nice advantage that we have is even if the server runtime is not multi-touch, in the thin clients for Web Thin Client or Secure Viewer, if they are multi-touch, then the thin clients can use the application as multi-touch even though the main server is not. So that's kind of a unique feature, kind of nice. Let me just take a peek here. If I wanted to, let's say, rotate a closed polygon, and you apply the rotation animation to this, you can see here that we have a gesture. Now this gesture feature, once you enable this, you cannot rotate this by using one finger. You'd have to use multiple touches or multiple fingers to be able to rotate that. Note here we also have inertia. I can also apply the resize, so this would be like a pinch and zoom that you might be familiar with from your iPad or your tablet, Android, or smartphone. I could do this, and that would be kind of a pinch and zoom. I can also do that on a screen basis as well. So I can go back here to Screen Attributes, get into Multi-Touch Settings, and I can set up my zoom ratios as well. So I can zoom in and out of a screen if I wanted to. And then last but not least, the position, which would be kind of a swipe or a position that I could turn on the multi-touch for that as well. And we also have something called inertia that you could, let's say, toss an object across the screen, and when you lifted your finger off the screen, it would still continue to slide across the screen. So that inertia setting is available for all those different multi-touch gestures as well. Moving on just a bit here. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover for the animations. Let's talk real briefly about a couple of other things built into this project. One of the things that I took from the PC demo is the tree view. Now we can get to the menus by all the different buttons along the sides of the screen. So here's some buttons, and I can get to the different screens this way. In this demo, I also have this tree view that I can expand and get to different screens. Now what I've done is I've taken that object out of this PC demo, and I've put it into this application. Oops, I have to change applications before I can show you that, sorry. Let's go back here to the webinar and run. And I put this in here, so now I can go home, I can go to the bottle screen, click on open, and now I can show that kind of tree view mechanism on how to do this. Now this is something that we don't necessarily actively support, but it's there, and we show you this. We demonstrated this in the Stump the Expert webinar a couple of weeks ago, so that's available for you to use. You can take a look at the scripting and how that's done as well. Let's take a look to see how that is. So the scripting is here, and basically we call this script, and then we fill in all the different parts of that tree view and how we want that to work. So that's how that is set up. So it's right about the top of the hour, and I've already answered the questions that have come into the chat window and the Q&A window. If you have any other questions, please feel free to put those in there now. We'll see if we can answer those. Otherwise, I'd really like to encourage you to watch the training videos covering animations, where we'll go into a lot more depth and details. One more thing that I did want to point out. Let's see here on the main, how to put an icon or an image on a button. We also have here on the button configuration, we now allow you to choose images, and I put an image in my project folder called Maintenance BMP. We also use the same one in the training video, and what I'm going to do is position this to the left of the text, and once I do that, then you can see this button during runtime has that little icon on it. You might make some icons that are relative to what you're doing here. Now I need to offset that a bit from that text, so let's go back in here. That was under main, and I'll change this to be a 20 pixel offset or so. And now when I do that, you should then see, yeah, so it slides over from the center there, 20 pixels. I can also make that background transparent, things of that nature. So there is the animations webinar. Hopefully you've learned something. I don't see. Oh, there's one more question. One question that has come in: can we use animated .gif images? The answer is no. We can't. There are several different places that you can use images within the product. You can use them as screen backgrounds, and if I right-click and go to Screen Attributes, you can see this drop down here. And unfortunately, .gif is not in here. Some people pronounce it .gif or .gif. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but we don't support that as a background, and nor do we support that as a linked picture. We currently support these file formats, and something new that's coming will be the WMF file format. That's in Service Pack 2. That's not available in Service Pack 1 if you have that. But if you wanted to do that, animated GIFs are basically frames that are timed. And if you have, let's say, a small number of those, you could actually synchronize those to scroll through on screen. So that's another way to do that. Another possibility of that would be maybe to put that into a web browser. So by using, let's say, an ActiveX web browser, we might be able to open up that animated GIF by using, let's see, what's it listed under here? Microsoft web browser, which is actually Internet Explorer, and then by pointing that to the GIF file. So that might be a way to do that. I've never tried that. That might be one thing that you might want to try here. What you would do would be to put the path and the file in brackets. I'm sorry, not brackets, in quotation marks in there, and that would get you to that. That might be one way to do it. A suggestion of how to pronounce GIF. It's a hard G, not like the peanut butter, somebody says. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I see no other questions. We really appreciate your time. Feel free to express your comments or suggestions when you get the survey. If you fill out your address and your shirt size, we'll send you off a T-shirt for the webinar series. And we'd love to have your feedback as to what you'd like to see in future webinars. Again, these are for you, and we'd like to increase your knowledge and understanding of InduSoft Web Studio. It makes your experience better, and that's something that we really like to do. And with that, I'm going to close, and thank you very much for your time and attending our webinar today. Hope to see you in future webinars. Thanks, and have a great day.